As a social worker for 30 years and a practice educator for 25 years, I know all too well how complex and messy social work can be sometimes. But I think good social work finds the simplicity in the complexity. And for the 30 years that I've been a social worker, there's one framework that has helped me through everything that I've done. Very simple framework. So many things around me have changed in that time, but the one thing that has helped me through my social work career is the framework of what, why, how. As a social worker, when we're going to start working with somebody, we're looking really at what's happening for this person, why has this situation come about, and then we're working with them to think about how we might be able to work together to bring about improved outcomes. So essentially, we're always looking at what, why, how. The danger is that in contemporary social work, when things are so busy and workloads are so high and timescales are tight, then what can happen is the why question falls off our agenda. And our direction becomes much more, what's happened? How do I deal with it? What's going on? How do I respond to this one? There's a real danger in that though, isn't there? When we lose the why question, our practice becomes proceduralized. It becomes managerialist. Maybe more dangerously, that's very much the medical model of practice, isn't it? Think about it. The medical model has always been, what's the diagnosis? How do we treat it? What's the prescription? How do we dispense it? There is no why in the medical model. As social workers, we bring the why into multidisciplinary practice. We bring the why into our own practice. Why is essential. Don't lose the why from your practice. The why question can promote learning. It helps us to learn. It helps us to create connections. It's where reflection really happens. It's what creates professional curiosity. Think about children who ask why constantly, don't they? As they're growing up, children are constantly asking why, almost until you've got no answer left for that question. Curiosity is really important for children's learning, and professional curiosity is really important for our own learning. In many ways, why is the most powerful of all of the questions that we can ask. I have found though, over the years, working with students has always been great for me because students will say to me, why do you do it like that, Siobhan? And it just makes me think, because maybe I've just done it like that for 10 years and I'm not really sure why. And so students asking me that has been really helpful to my own practice. I've noticed though, maybe the last 5 or 6 years, I can't be definite, but over that period of time, students have been less often asking me why and more often asking me, what form do I need to fill in? How do I get this done? What policy do I need to follow here? A lot of what and how questions and less why questions. When I've had the opportunity to work with groups of students and I've said to them, why aren't you asking why as much anymore? They've said, well, we think it's a silly question. We're being assessed. We need to demonstrate that we understand. And if we ask why, it kind of says we don't understand. But why is the most powerful question we can ever ask as a social worker. And actually, asking why promotes leadership. Simon Sinek tells us that why is all about entire leadership, but more of that later. The key aspect is why is where all of the connections happen. Why is where we connect theory with practice. Why is where we make connections with reflection. Why is where students connect what they've learnt in university with what's happening on placement. Why connects the what's going on and how do we deal with it. The why is essential. So you could use this basic framework in so many ways. Think about it as a student. What are my learning needs? Why are they important? How am I going to learn those? And how will I demonstrate that I have learnt those? Use the what, why, how framework for everything that you do. I mentioned Simon Sinek earlier. He's perhaps the most influential writer and consultant at the moment in terms of leadership. He talks about the need for entire leadership and writes about the need for us to start with why and the need for us to sometimes find our why. He refers to the golden circle, which I would see like this. He describes the why sitting in the middle of the how and the what. And Simon Sinek says that in terms of organisations, all organisations know what they do. Some organisations know how they do it. It's that kind of their unique selling point, what makes them different, how they go about things. But according to Simon Sinek, very few organisations know why they do what they do. I think we could draw that out into social work. You know, most of us focus and know what we do as social workers. In fact, we have an international definition of social work agreed around the world, what we do, what social work is. We're learning how we do it. As student social workers, you're learning your how. Each social worker will have a slightly different how. It's their style, it's their approach to practice. But your why is unique to you. Why do you want to be a social worker? Or indeed, why are you a social worker? This is really central to our key being, focusing in on why am I a social worker? There are many times when I go into social work offices and I'll hear someone say, this isn't why I became a social worker. And it's usually when they're sat at a computer and they've just typed a load of stuff in and it's lost all the data. But I'll say to them then, well, why did you become a social worker? And I get something back like, I wanted to work with people. I get what they're saying, but it's not enough, is it, to say, I want to work with people. Taxi drivers work with people, hairdressers work with people, teachers work with people. Why social work? Why social work? And you know, that connects into what we think it is and how we do it. Keeping focused on that what, why and how can help us to avoid a cynical spiral of practice. Don't focus in on this isn't why I became a social worker, but instead focus in on this is why I did become a social worker. When you focus on why I didn't become a social worker, you find that every day in your practice. But if you keep focused on why you did become a social worker, that will be there every day in your practice too. That why is essential. So where Simon Sinek talks about the golden circle, I would say in many ways for us as social workers, the why is the golden thread of our practice. We don't just start with why, but social work has why at the start and at the very heart of our practice. In many ways, why is the beating heart of good social work practice. Maintain your focus on why, but use that whole framework. So as a student, think through the what, the why and the how, but remember how central the why is. So sometimes I'm going out to do a direct observation with a student and I'll say to them, why are we going on this visit? And they'll say something like, well, it's a statutory visit. No, that's what it is. That's not why we're doing it. Keep your focus always on why you are a social worker. What, why, how provides a simple but incredibly powerful and quite complex framework for practice. I hope you've enjoyed that basic introduction to the what, why, how framework that I use in my own practice. Please do though follow me on Twitter and Facebook, and if you've got any questions that you want me to address in this channel, then either leave a comment beneath the video or send me a message via one of those channels. Thanks for watching.